Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse and video game news. Today is Friday, August 6th. Starting a little bit later than I'd like, but whatever. We got a ridiculously high amount of average watch time at 14 minutes last stream, so thank you for that. So often it's like I'll see there's a watch time that's averaging about 12 seconds, and it's like, how could you even listen to me for 12 seconds? And if you like, it really goes to show how many just random clicks happen, and honestly probably how many babies, like little 1-2 year olds and earlier babies, are on YouTube just clicking buttons randomly, letting autoplay happen. Although babies with autoplay, if they weren't hitting next buttons or anything else, would probably watch 100% of the videos. So it has to be somebody that at least knows the next button enough to see, oh, there's not enough flashy, colorful, cartoony graphics or whatever. Something to catch somebody's attention. I guess we'll be playing Bloodcraft or Havencraft today. I guess we could do Havencraft, but we'll try a little bit of Bloodcraft in the arena. Let's open a pack. For the accountability section, I'm still playing Batman Arkham City. It's turning into quite the grind, the game, really. There's, at 440 collectibles in total, it's too much. Like, I think you probably don't want to go to the extreme of making almost a Telltale game where you would fast travel from one location to another location. I think the open world concept is something that was worth them trying, but I don't think it's necessary to have Riddler trophies and Riddler riddles, where you have to take photos to find a solution in the massive amount that is in the game. Like, it's just too much. It's only really in the open world that there are, well, no, that's not true. There are definitely riddles and Riddler trophies in the internal dungeon areas, but the internal dungeon areas suffer, I think, heavily by being much smaller, because of the open world, and it feels fairly obvious that what didn't happen here and what totally should have happened is a what should have happened is the budget should have been doubled for Arkham City compared to Arkham Asylum, and it just wasn't. And so it creates this scenario where the buildings are smaller in Arkham City than they were in Arkham Asylum. And there's a point where you can off in the distance see Arkham Asylum's, the island. So you know that Arkham City physically is supposed to be way bigger, and yet the only way they accomplish the feeling of the city being bigger is having you run through a very drab, boring looking city open world environment. Each district of the open world should be way different in its visuals. There's a section that's kind of controlled by poison ivy, so obviously that section should be more green and lush with plants. There's a section with Two-Face where that could be more black and white in its paintings. There's a section with Penguin that should be like rich and opulent. There's a section with the Joker, and so in that section it should be bright and colorful and clown-like. There's a Mr. Freeze section that should be more off blue ice looking, frozen. But that's totally not what happens. The entire city looks very monotone as this rusty, flooded out area that, as the story is going forward, is getting just snowier and snowier, covered in white because of it just being winter. I don't even think Mr. Freeze is involved in any way.
I shall protect you.
So, yeah.
Oh. Ow.
It's just bad visual art design. A ton of Arkham City looks awful. And it is 100% down to the visual pop-in of the engine of the game not popping in. So you have these lower textured skins, and they just don't load in the higher textured skins. It's possibly because of a memory leak, and possibly if you played the game in a different way than I play video games and exited out and then loaded back in, maybe more of the skins would load in. But if you don't do that, it just looks terrible. And it definitely looks terrible, and I don't want to pause my game or exit out of my game. I'm fine with pausing games, but I want to be able to pause the game on PC, Alt-Tab out. This, I guess, once again highlights a factor around it shows any damage dealt to your leader is dealt to the enemy instead. That's great, but I can't play anything else, so you
Scatter like the blossom.
A bloody climax. You know you want this. I'll see you in purgatory.
well, I lost, which is funny because I thought I would win there. I thought I was really close. Yeah, there's a lack of budget, clearly, and if there had been more budget towards the visuals, instead of making the open world, that would have been great. If there had been more budget towards the dungeons, instead of making the open world, that would have been great.
Like the moon on the water's surface.
As they push to follow trends of an Assassin's Creed style game, which is really what it feels like, is that first or second, the first few Assassin's Creed games where you're just running around collecting every feather possible for very little benefit. I have hit a plateau as far as collecting the Riddler trophies to the point where they're just unlocking 3D models, which you'd have to exit out to the main game to see. The main story also kind of streamlines you in such a way that right now, as I'm towards the end, you really don't have a lot of opportunity to run around and collect the last few Riddler trophies, which makes it feel like you're gonna unlock some kind of late game co-op or post-story co-op scenario where you can play as Batman or Catwoman and switch between the two of them. I did finally get to a sequence where you play as Catwoman again for a brief second, and at the end of her sequence, which I suppose it is worth mentioning, to get to Catwoman's sequence, you have a big fight that was super hard, and it took me like 6 times, and I think on the 6th attempt, the game just let me win. And remember, I'm just playing on normal, but after you do that incredibly difficult fight with Batman, you then do a very short stealth mission, and then you are into a fight with Catwoman, who there's really no way Catwoman's armor would have been upgraded enough to take on the 6 or 7 characters that are attacking her. So that was a incredibly frustrating big fight, and it is getting me in certainly a bad position where I might be 99.9% done with the game, and I'll just be at that final boss fight and just rage quit at that point. I also might just finish the story and stop trying to get the collectibles. There is one side mission with the augmented reality training that really seems like it wants us to fly and glide way better than I think I could, and I don't know if that's just because I need to turn on vertical sync and slow down the frame rate of the game. I wouldn't be surprised if I locked the game closer to 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, if all of a sudden a lot of the struggle I've had with gliding in particular became way easier. There was an entire side mission with the Mad Hatter that just appeared and finished in one quick breath. We finished another side mission with Zaz, which ended fairly abruptly. It does seem like all of the side missions are barely thoughts at all, and they just threw them in as content that they hadn't really polished or finished. It does seem like the Arkham Asylum series is going to be a little bit more willing to kill off characters and not bring them back, because there's been teases of Scarecrow, and I don't think we're going to actually see that. I don't think we're going to see Killer Croc, even though they talk about Killer Croc. Which that's fine, because that leaves more room for them to potentially play with some of the other characters, but they're really not going in crazy directions either. They're like introducing the Penguin and Mr. Freeze and getting rid of Killer Croc and the Scarecrow is hardly a drastic shift. They're not bringing in like Mothman or the Man-Bat or anything really crazy like that. Where it probably would be helpful. Do I really want to play this?
No, don't pick on my bloodkin. Good.
Yeah. But there really isn't a lot to say. I put quite a lot of time into Batman Arkham Asylum, and there's really not much that's changed from the last time I talked about it. In the Catwoman section, after you do the incredible difficult fight, you're given a chance to walk to the right and leave Arkham City with the stolen goods she's stealing and leave Batman to die, basically. Or walk to the left and stupidly leave the stolen items, because for no real reason. Like, she's holding two briefcases and she needs to crawl down a extremely short ventilation shaft. So short that you could stick your arm through the ventilation shaft and grab the briefcases, or you could use Catwoman's whip to grab them, or you could just throw them or slide them, or you could, even if there was incredibly precious items in the briefcases that you couldn't jostle at all, there are still other options.
I suppose I've lost some of my edge.
I
This-
can devour your dreams.
So yeah, she just leaves these two briefcases for no reason. She should have just taken them with him. If you choose to go to the right and leave the Arkham City, you get a fake credits where you hear Oracle talk about how the Joker basically wins and Batman's gone and dead and Wayne Manor's been compromised and the whole world is doomed. And then it just rewinds back to that same decision again. Which I doubt there's anything that would really be different if you just continuously chose to leave Arkham City with your stolen goods. This probably was right at the point when Arkham City came out where they started to think about rehabilitating the Catwoman character. Now, the latest thing I've heard is that Catwoman is literally married to Bruce Wayne, so... although it is also at a weird point because they're still kind of talking about the romance between Talia al Ghul and Batman, so... it's a bit of a transition period, as much as all Batman stories are transition periods to the next reboot and the next new way of telling this story. Same story over and over again, usually. But yeah, you basically could try and run around all of the city getting the Catwoman trophies, but there's definitely some Catwoman trophies that can't be collected until either the open world changes more. I have noticed that it seems like it is getting changed a little bit more. There's more ice bridges showing up on the ground, so maybe that's naturally going to just continue to happen. But I also wouldn't be surprised if there will just be a co-op thing. Like, what really strikes me is that there feels like there has to be some kind of co-op thing, because there's too many places where there are 3 switches and you need to stand on each of the 3 switches at once. And I don't see how that works in any way other than having Catwoman and Robin or some other characters standing on those switches at the same time, or some ability to create a heavy weight to put on switches, or some kind of flash step hologram technology that can make Batman appear on 3 different switches and actually activate 3 different switches. Regardless, I guess I'll find out as soon as I make my way through the game, which that's what I plan on doing this weekend. I probably need to upload and just double check as far as scheduling too. I constantly have this scenario in my head where I feel like I have plenty of time to schedule videos, and then when I actually go look, I don't have the videos scheduled anywhere as far ahead as I would like it to be. Like, that there is even a small possibility that I don't even really have enough content for Halloween month. Which I definitely was thinking about, like, the Halloween month concept, and if it wouldn't be easier to just say like 13 days of October or something like that, and whatever the first 13 days of October are the build-up of playing horror games. I wouldn't want to put a real number on it because the number of days will always be randomly different. That's why it's easier just to say Halloween month, even though that is a intentionally awkward and stupid phrase. But yeah, there is definitely some room for questioning as to whether I should try to schedule the Halloween content starting around October, or I mean, you pretty much have to. I don't know how I could try and find a filler series that was only a week long, for instance, to make sure the Halloween content actually airs on Halloween. And that's the only real concern there, is that there is this case where it's very possible a horror game series starts on October 1st and does not make it to Halloween
Embrace all manner of spellcraft.
because the game is fairly short. Moving on, we've got plenty of games to talk about. We can leave some games, but we'll try to cover a few of them. Here we have one on Steam called Eternal Cave Escape. I redid my OBS software using a source mirror. I don't know why I didn't do that before. I think probably in the 2 or 3 different ways I tried to set up the anti-content ID abuse system, I probably found I couldn't use the source mirror in one of those systems, one of the ways it was set up, and then I used the other way, and then using the other way,
Show you something nice.
Scatter like the blossom.
I can use it. Having it set up as a source mirror is not really that different from the way it was set up before, where it was just directly accessing the second monitor. But what it sets up is a case where when my PC decides to mess up because I turn off one monitor and switch the input on a different monitor, and then all of a sudden Windows has decided that the second display is the third display, instead of just having some kind of hard-coded universal unique ID, which that's ideally what I would like to be able to do, is just search by the TV name in my case, or the monitor name in most people's case, and say, on this monitor I always want this screen to be captured. But since that's not an option in OBS, and really that's probably more OBS's fault.
I'm gonna knock you out of this world. Nice and
That
heavy.
should
This bears further study.
that should fix.
I'm out of cash.
A glimpse into the future.
Nah,
is
I lost my
only
train of
the
thought there.
glimpse into the future is only the beginning.
I see on the chat we have Lou Casabon Bernardo saying hi, and then he says, do you know why your Danganronpa series is repeating itself? The chat is a little delayed and I'm a little slow to respond. He says hello at this point. I don't know a way that Danganronpa series would be repeating itself. You cannot upload duplicate videos, as it were, to YouTube. It detects that. The file names that the files are in are unique down to the second when recording starts. So I kind of suspect that it's not a case that Danganronpa is repeating itself as much as the YouTube Next Play Play Next feature is putting videos in a weird order and suggesting the same videos over and over to you, which is something that happens to me all the time on YouTube. Is that if you are not looking at the subscription, or if you're not watching a playlist, it will the suggested homepage of YouTube will just tell you, watch this video that you watched 6 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, yesterday. Very often you'll watch something and it will even point out that it knows you watched 90% of that video or all of that video, and it will still suggest watch that video again. So yeah, I I don't know really how I could like investigate it any further than that. The other thing that might be leading to confusion with Danganronpa is after beating the main story, which I don't think the series has aired at that point, has gotten to this point. There is this extra mini game that which is super grindy and went on for way too long. But there's this extra mini game where you do the same thing multiple times, and that is not a case of the videos repeating themselves as much as I am just playing the same game content over and over again, grinding out resources to get different endings, because it definitely goes full. Let's see. Says, for me, episode 14 is the same as episode 32. Okay, well, that's something that's a little bit more actionable. Let me see if I can pull up the right Chrome page. Which one do we want? Here we go. Oh.
No one else has to know.
So let's see, looking here. Yeah. And see, 32, there's like 65 episodes, so it's still going on really close. So here's 32. I'm looking at it. It was published August 5th. It's 2 hours and 31 minutes and 19 seconds long. It's super long.
Embrace all manner of spellcraft.
Then I'll have to go back to 14 on the next page. 14 was published July 12th, 2021. 2 hours and 7 minutes and 47 minutes long. It's got to be a glitch with YouTube, really. I mean, I hate to just have to shirk responsibility and say it's a glitch with YouTube, but it's got to be. Neither one of these by YouTube are claimed to be duplicate things. There's some copyright claims on some of these videos, but like 14 is copyright claimed, but it's not blocked by any means. The thumbnail for episode 14 is Sakura freaking out. Whereas going back to 32, was it? Or 34? Let's see. I covered up my chat. Let's see. Uh, 15 is the same as 33. 14, so I meant 14 and 27. I'm gonna... Alright, well, let's see. 14 and 27. I suppose it is possible. Okay, I see what happened here. Wow, I can't believe YouTube let me do that. Wonder how many mistakes I made like this. Right, so 27 has a file name of
reasonable.
2:22:44 is the time. And it was recorded on the 2nd, on February 11th. Alright. Yeah, I'm a little surprised that it let me do this, and that this hasn't happened before. All right, yeah, you are right. So let's see. I'll have to work on this and try and reschedule these videos. Honestly, I don't think I'm gonna probably want to do anything. It sadly just breaks too much to try and fix this on the fly.
Like the moon on the water's surface.
Like, let's see. So episode 34 is 2 hours and 4 minutes and 58 cents. Let me see if, yeah. So I must have uploaded things, fallen asleep, gotten confused, and uploaded things twice, and I just uploaded enough things in between the previous things that YouTube didn't detect that. So there is sadly this case where there is this overlap of repeated content that I can't really fix, because the only thing I could do at this point is try and renumber everything, start over from the repeats, and private the repeated things, but I just don't have really the time to fix that. There is something interesting here, though, in that while tomorrow airs an episode 34, which is a repeat, and that's labeled as 34, the next thing that seems to be scheduled to air is 38. So I either jumped numbers, and 38 is 2 hours and 19 minutes and 20 seconds, and has a, yeah. But no, that's also repeated. Yeah, I don't know how YouTube let me screw up this badly. It is really messed up. Like that's gonna take some work. And the only thing I can really say is that I'll probably just have to let the repeated content continue to air. And apologies to people who have already seen that content. Yeah. Thank you, Lou Casabano Bernardo, for pointing this out to me, and I will fix it eventually, but trying to reschedule that then pushes back the next thing, and so it would just leave this huge gap, and it would just create a gap that I could not really fill. Let's see if I can pull up the schedule and figure out how this would even
I hope you're
affect
ready to
things.
escort me.
Like, I'm already so overwhelmed and behind. It would just mess up. Like, yeah, as my schedule is scheduled right now, I have Danganronpa playing for 59 episodes until September 8th. And then there's Karateka and then Hyperlight Drifter, which apparently I haven't scheduled yet. So maybe I could change some things around and try and fix that. I hope this isn't a case where the series, some content was lost, because if content was lost, it may just be gone forever. I don't have backups that go on forever. These videos are very big and I don't have that kind of hard drive space. Yeah, it seems like what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna just have to take a special break after this stream to try and adjust that, try and get all of the episodes to air. Part of the problem certainly is that with Insomnia, doing all the paperwork and YouTube doesn't particularly make it super efficient or easy to schedule the videos, and I've wanted to make an automated way of doing it for a long time, and I've just not. It's just fairly complicated to automate website studios. But yeah, I've wanted a better system for a long time to try and make sure that these kinds of errors can't happen and that I can't be half asleep and confused.
Are you as excited as I am? I'm so excited!
Oh, it's not an L, it's an I, apparently. So it's EU Casabano Bernardo. I as in ink. Oh, sorry. That's kind of a exact, perfect example of just like when looking at a screen and seeing numbers, it's fairly easy for me to make these tiny little mistakes. And particularly on YouTube Studio and scheduling videos, a tiny mistake can become a very big noticeable mistake. And I could try and pat myself on the back and say, well, I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years now, and this is one of only a few mistakes for the vast amount of nearly 10,000 videos I put out, but that's not really the attitude I would say should be adopted. But yeah, I'll try and get that fixed, but it is also very possible that there will either be a gap of Danganronpa where just newer episodes don't air, and that would be something I would try and avoid first. So it probably is better just to let the videos re-air. But yeah, that definitely sucks, and I think it's definitely worth pointing out that it is. I should be extremely thankful to EU Casabano Bernardo, and I am, for actually watching my content and helping point out these mistakes, because almost certainly there are half a dozen or more similar mistakes on other series on my channel, like almost certainly.
Like the moon on the water's surface.
But yeah, there's plenty of series that come out on my channel that basically have 0 views and nobody's watched them. So that is also potentially the danger of getting bigger, as I am slowly growing bigger and bigger in the number of subscribers. At some point, if I got to the point where I had like 10,000, 100,000 subscribers and people are watching my videos, I think I might very quickly in the first few months get overwhelmed with people finding mistakes or finding things to just comment on even. Well,
Fighting in despair, all you know.
this does create a interesting situation now where we want to get through the video game news. Oh, he wants to just be called EU. Okay. I'll just call him EU. So yeah, this creates a situation where we want to once again get through the video game news as quickly as possible, which it was a Friday. I already wanted to do that, so we'll try and rush as quickly as possible through the news. It kind of doesn't even matter if we get the daily quest done on Shadowverse or not. Raven Software has a Twitter here for Call of Duty Warzone, I guess is what they're most known for making, saying, "We are aware players are not receiving blueprints while participating in the Blueprint Blitz events. We have temporarily disabled the event to address the issue." And then 5 hours ago, they said Blueprint Blitz is now live. So it took them 5 hours to realize it was not working and try and fix it. Which I think that is just kind of one of those great examples of server and online services just not being maintained well, which I definitely see that in a lot of games. Is they're just kind of constantly having trouble doing the events and having good launches of their events. They're not doing enough background beta testing, and a games as service concept, I think in general does create a weird situation where you are going to have to constantly need more QA and betas than you would otherwise. I thought this was interesting. The National Video Game Museum in Frisco, Texas, it has apparently decided to partner with Disney, which honestly I don't really think Disney is particularly that pro-preservation at all. Like, so in fact I honestly don't really consider Disney even that pro-artistic creation, since their goal as of recently, or at least a few years ago, was to fire all of their skilled animators and replace them with foreign workers. But apparently the Video Game Museum has decided to partner with them to advertise the movie Free Guy, which that seems like a mistake, honestly. Like, I don't think a video game museum should be getting in bed with Disney. But who knows, maybe that means Disney will donate something of very extreme rarity, very high rarity, to the museum, and that might benefit society enough. Like, it's probably the case that a lot of museum curators and museums in general have to get in bed with some unsavory fellows to build their collections, because it tends to be the rich and the slightly corrupt that end up getting their hands on rare, expensive museum pieces.
Stop! No!
Moving on, I don't know if that really was even news, more as just talking about advertisements. Embracer Group has acquired 8 more companies, including 3D Realms, which was the original publisher of Duke Nukem, and several other games. If you can recognize any of these characters, like a lot of these characters, like I think I recognize this character, like Pajama Sam maybe, but maybe not. This looks like Black Widow, but I couldn't really tell you. Here's Commander Keen. I can point that one out. I can point out Duke Nukem. But then there's a lot of other games here that I don't recognize. And 3D Realms published the original Prey. They also got, let's see, Slipgate Ironworks, a Danish studio, DigiX Art, a French studio, Forcefield, a Dutch VR gaming company, Crazy Labs, an Israel-based publisher, Ghost Ship Games, which I recognize that company, Easy Trigger, a Swedish studio, and Grimfrost, an e-commerce specialist. Yeah. It definitely feels like Embracer Group is trying to be Tencent, or at least compete with Tencent, by being a even more international, worldwide company through acquisitions and trying to be as big as possible. Clearly, they're trying to just rebuild a new THQ. But I kind of want to know where they're getting their money from at this point, because it is it is kind of crazy. Let's see. EU says, yeah, EU is a Catalan, a language that not a lot of people know, and even is a weird name, but I'm proud of my weird short name. Catalan? I said Cantalin, but he's typed in Catalan. Okay, I guess that's Catalan. Or Catalan? Yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce the language, let alone the name. That's how bad I am. Yep. Moving on, Video Game Chronicles says EA claims it doesn't get enough credit for how well it works with acquired studios. I don't get, like, whoever's giving these interviews, like the chief operating officer here and chief financial officer Blake Jorgensen, he needs some training, clearly. I think we had already even talked about this story, but clearly he needs some press training, because this comes off as incredibly selfish and ridiculous a statement to make. You don't want to come off making a comment that probably was fairly innocuous, but allowed a company like Video Game Chronicles and other journalists to then make a clickbait headline title that says they claim they don't get enough credit for how well it works. Like, the only people I've ever heard that said they deserve more credit for anything are the people that literally are nightmares to work with and don't deserve any credit at all. So yeah, that's a bad look. Like if you're fishing for compliments in general, that's what it boils down to. Is that's a bad look. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says Mario Golf Super Rush gets a free update with a new character, course, and mode. Which, that's nice and all, but I think the reviews have already come in, so I don't think you're likely to have much more of a surge in sales. The new character is Toadette, the new course is New Donk City. Which clearly they should have just been there day one. Because it has Mario on the name, there will always be, I imagine, parents that will not really pay enough attention and end up buying Mario Golf Super Rush, and I imagine for young kids that will work fine and won't really cause any major disappointment, but it definitely doesn't seem like Mario Super Rush is even in the top tier of Switch games or Mario games. Moving on, Video Game Chronicles says Evil Dead the game has been delayed to 2022, but will now get a single player mode, which is kind of nice. That was something I don't think that ever came to the Friday the 13th game, which was player versus player only. That being said, a single player game mode for a game that is designed around the entire concept of player versus player generally tends not to be much of anything, because then you're just kind of playing with bots, and playing with bots is usually not worth your effort.
Why did I want gold again?
Moving on, Video Game Chronicles, Xbox and Twitch are hosting a second Indies game showcase next week. The first event showed over 100 upcoming games, which is weird because then that means you would expect there to be another 100 indie games to showcase. I don't think events like that make sense. Like, 100 games is way too many. We certainly have seen some Nintendo Direct-like presentations or E3 presentations where they talk about 3 or 4 games. The last Sony presentation at E3 where they talked about The Last of Us 2 and maybe 2 other games for like an hour and a half is kind of a great example of them really stretching it far too much. But when it would have been pretty funny if he ended up with 5 of those, because then he wouldn't have been able to play a card. But you would be hard pressed to do that since you can only have 3 cards of any kind usually on the field.
Foul forces of darkness, bow before my tempest.
But yeah, 100's way too many. I could see there being presentations showing about 30, maybe even 50 games if you have very little to show. But if you're talking 100, you almost certainly are going to have an experience where it just flashes a single frame of a game and doesn't have anybody really try and talk about it at all. Let's see. EU says Catalan is the language of Catalonia. If you haven't heard about Catalonia, I'm sure you've heard about Barcelona. It's the capital of Catalonia. Huh. I thought Barcelona was in Spain. Maybe there's 2 Barcelonias. People say that Catalan sounds like a mix of Spanish and French. Yeah. I definitely did think your name sounded Spanish. Spanish. or possibly South American.
Foul forces of darkness, bow before my tempest.
Moving on, Gametsu has Power Pro Kun Pocket R launching November 25th in Japan. This is the baseball game with the blob creatures. I don't know what art style you would really call this. It's like, I want to call them Nintendo Wii like. That's what they really look like more than anything. The laid back camp Have a Nice Day has been delayed to November 11th in Japan. So yet another example of Japanese games getting delayed, although at this point I can't really blame Japanese publishers or developers for delaying things. They're overly precautious generally speaking, but with the pandemic and everything, I can't blame them for delaying the release of things.
Blow on, dear wind.
You're in good hands.
Let's see.
A fair a day keeps the doctor away.
I don't think that's gonna save me.
Foul forces of darkness.
Melty Blood type Lumnia has a new trailer with Hisui and Kohaku, which this is a Japanese fighting game. See, so Hisui and Kohaku are two like maid characters. I don't know if they are basically one character that switch in, switch out. I think it is. So two characters fighting at the exact same time. This is very weird looking, certainly, to have two maid-like characters fighting in a fighting game. Yeah. But yeah, I don't suppose that's more than that's more weird than tiger people fighting in games or any of the other weirdo characters we've seen. Let's spice it up and play something different here. Yeah. Yeah, he says, EU says Catalonia is a region of Spain. Ah, okay. That makes sense. So yeah, I was a little afraid I was insulting somebody by saying I thought it was in Spain, because it could possibly have been a case where Catalonia had a violent break-off with the rest of Spain and took Barcelona with them at some point, and I just don't know enough world history to have known something like that happened. I do know that ancient Spain was pretty much as bad as every other country a few hundred years ago, with the whole land acquisition and piracy and colonization concepts. But they eventually, I think, reformed their ways like most countries and have gotten a lot better, somewhat. Mm. Mm.
That soul belongs to me.
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. The Idolmaster Starlet Season Practice Season demo for PS4 is now available in Japan and Asia. This is one of those rhythm games with Idolmaster characters. I think we're probably getting to a point though where Idolmaster is getting a little long in the tooth. I don't think we're gonna see 4 or 5 years down the road more Idolmaster games. I think they're gonna probably push more of the virtual YouTuber characters They have their own games. Yeah. Oh, EU says Catalonia has a big independence movement. Google it. Yeah. Yeah, I'll look that up later. But let's see. Nexon showcases 12 games: Project Magnum, Project HP, Mabinogi Mobile, and more. I don't recognize any of these games. There's one called DR1, there's one labeled DR2, there's one called Kart Rider Drift. Here's Mabinogi Mobile, which... I wonder if these are all games that are mostly going to be Japanese released. Yeah, this looks like an Asian RPG type experience, and it looks nice, but this teaser in trailer is probably not realistic to what the actual game looks like. Although graphics are getting very good on mobile games these days. Here we have a different one called Overkill. I'm wondering if Nexon might be a Chinese company, because this is very ambitious to have this many games highlighted at once. Let's see. Do this. And then do this.
Take only what is necessary.
Do this.
Thanks for the
And
song.
this.
Wouldn't.
See, then another game called P3. Then we have a game called Project ER. This looks nice. But yeah, these definitely all strike me as like higher level Chinese MMORPG attempts, which I'd appreciate. I would definitely appreciate to see more games like this on Steam than the low-level garbage that often gets shoveled on the Steam. This looks very nice, very colorful. Of course, I don't think there's any guarantee that any of these are coming to the West. Like, clearly none of this is really targeted to your standard Halo player. Even this is closer to a Final Fantasy 15 experience with guns than what you would expect from just a first-person shooter. Project Mod. Seems to be some kind of programming game, or game where you can mod games. It's an interesting idea. One mod programming language that works on any kind of game would be interesting, but it just doesn't work out that way. This looks like a very traditional, like, JRPG game. So yeah, that kind of highlights again just showing a bunch of games. There are 12 games is fairly overwhelming in one post. So potentially trying to show off 100 is really asking for a lot.
Scatter like the blossom. I've got all the magic I need. Here goes.
Didn't move fast enough. Apparently, Nexon is a studio in Seoul, South Korea. So those are Korean games, not Chinese games. Okay, well, I'd also explain it. I think we are probably on the verge of a slight breakthrough success in Korean games in general. So if you had like lots of money to waste and you wanted to do some medium-term investing, I would say not just investing in Nexion, but getting a category fund of video game companies in South Korea and investing in general in that. You probably would get a decent return in the next 5 to 10 years on that. Of course, plenty of other things could happen to make that not happen, so I'm not giving real investing advice here. I'm simply shooting my mouth off.
Thanks for the soul.
Whoa. So there never was a mystery?
A flash of metal, a silent night.
The ruin of Six Heralds' destruction.
Let's see. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here. How would you? Let's see. Asasugutori debut trailer details and screenshots. Looks like a new game I haven't seen before. Let's see what this trailer is. More of a pencil sketch animation. Seeing a lot of blood bags, so there's something about the story about being injected in blood. And then you have these characters that are running around. Is this the story in which you try to stop you go through time and try and stop somebody from dying? Yep. That might be it. Let's see. You wake up in a strange room, you meet these other characters, all of which have like dog tags and coats and non-consistent outfits. They're kind of in like summer gear, outside of school gear. Only one survives. Can leave the only one girl who survives until the end will be able to leave the building. So yeah, an interesting premise, but then when you look at the actual game play footage, it does look closer to something that you would expect from a Nintendo DS game from about 12 years ago. And that's inherently the problem with a lot of these stories, is that they can do all these interesting concept arts and character arts all they want, but you're not really going to get much art. You may get a single scene or so, or you may get some faces when you're talking to you in their kind of visual novel style, but the vast majority of the game will be just wandering around trying to escape. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't work. Like, even when I played a game like, what was it, 999, like that was a that was a game that I think I liked a lot more, but that was, it still drug on as a visual novel. 999 did, and became very annoying.
He's fighting in despair.
I'm seeing EU say that my volume is too low.
I smell trouble.
It's crazy that it's the volume of my voice would be too low. I assume you mean as far as decibels and not just let's see if we can, and you don't mean as far as bass. Let's see. Well, I'm peaking at -15, so let's see what we would do if we did that. Testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3. That's 5 decibels louder. Let's go 10 decibels louder. And at that point, according to my own meter, that would be redlining. Alright. That's 10 decibels louder. How does that sound? Hear you? Yeah, I know a lot of times I am kind of away from the microphone, and I'm kind of low energy on the audio, so I can be quieter than I think I am. But also the way this whole system is set up, I'm not directly hearing into my headphones the exact same thing that at the same volume that it's going into the stream, so yeah. But I really wouldn't want to turn up the audio much more than this, because that is putting it far into the red as far as a audio sound. Like I've got 5 decibels to spare, so although in all fairness I'm never really going to scream any louder than this when I'm just directly facing the microphone versus turning to the side and looking at my monitor that's to the left of me. Yeah, EU says that's better. Alright, well, let me know if that's still too quiet. I guess I could go a little bit louder. Like, it probably means that once I stop playing Batman Arkham City, I'll want to turn up the audio on that too. But I do listen to the videos on very rare occasions myself, and it sounds fine to me on my computer, but also I have everything turned up fairly loud on everything. Like, I have my cell phone hacked to be as loud as possible, and I have my PC set up to be as loud as possible, so I really want to hear it loud. Maybe I'm a little deaf, and I've over-adjusted for my own deafness, and other people haven't. Theoretically, the videos and the pre-recorded footage is supposed to be kind of normalized for YouTube, but I don't know how much that works or not. It would really suck if it turned out that was the reason why a lot of my videos don't get views, is that it's just really too quiet, but I wouldn't be surprised. Except for that one video. There was always that one video from Kerbal Space Program where the software from Kerbal Space Program, the way they implemented playing the audio was insanely programmed, and it made videos super, super loud. And I couldn't hear it at all in my headphones. It wasn't until the videos got uploaded did you have this incredibly loud noise, engine noise playing in Kerbal Space Program, and the dialogue turned way down. And that's one of those cases where that video, those few videos of me playing Kerbal Space Program, became controversial enough as far as people commenting, because people were complaining about the audio, that it then started, the YouTube algorithm started to recommend the video to more people. So yeah, it became this catch-22 where your bad videos sometimes drive the audience and drive the direction to your channel. And as a small starting YouTuber, like, any view is a good view at that point. It's only until you're an established big YouTuber do you have that luxury to potentially delete a bad video.
Harder, faster, holier.
Yeah. EU says the Danganronpa and Pinball Arcade series has the volume super low. I think I adjusted the volume on those after recording those series. So yeah, it's pretty much in October you'll start to hear better audio on that. I can't go back and adjust the audio volumes after the fact, unfortunately. But I did get that feedback. And after playing Batman Arkham City, I'll go back. Yeah. He says, now I'm watching your Lego Batman 3 series from 2016 and the volume is fine. Well, I imagine that's probably because I was playing on my old computer and some setting got moved over. Like, I drastically changed the settings between 2016 and they built a whole new computer. So, yeah, I probably screwed something up at some point when reinstalling the software. So, yeah. I'll try and double check and make it louder. Moving on, though. Gamatsu has an article, Bubble Bobble 4 Friends for PC has been subtitled The Baron's Workshop and adds a stage creator. Which, probably is the best way to play Bubble Bobble if you wanted to play Bubble Bobble for friends. I don't know if you can actually play a single player version of this game, though. Or if you have to have 4 people, or maybe at least 2 people. Let's see. Let's look at its Steam page and we can figure that out, I guess. It does say it has single player. Although, that does then introduce the next question as far as if this is Bubble Bobble 4, do you really need to own and play Bubble Bobble 1 through 3? Or is 4 good enough since it just retreads old territory? I actually was quite surprised when some very young kids played Bubble Bobble and turned out to really like it, which I guess is a great testament to just a long-running series potentially still having mass appeal. Yeah, Taito Corporation has not updated to the new Steam developer publisher pages, and all they have is a lot of Groove Coaster DLC and Bubble Bobble 4 Friends and one other thing I overlooked. But Space Invaders Extreme. That's, yeah. So they are at the beginning of a path of dipping their toe into PC releases, and they have not released it. Yeah, EU says, I just watched your Lego Indiana Jones Series 2 from 2017 and the audio is also super low. Yeah. I probably am still accidentally balancing it to be too low. Like, I could be misreading something. That would certainly make a lot of sense to me. Like, there shouldn't have been much of a change between Lego Batman 3 and Lego Indiana Jones 2 in that 1 year, but maybe something did happen there. Maybe I'm wrong about YouTube auto balancing the audio. I thought it did that, normalize the audio. One of the things I definitely try to do is not have in-game music playing that loud because that causes content IDs. So it might have been the case with Indiana Jones 2 that the Indiana Jones music was turned down to avoid that. It could also be that that is one of the ways in which YouTube removes music from videos, is it makes the audio go super low in certain points. But that would be fairly noticeable because it would get really quiet right when the music starts playing, and then it would go back up when the music stops playing. Unless I intentionally turned the in-game music down. And I think I vaguely do recall that as far as Lego Indiana Jones, that was an issue where there was a lot of content ID claims around that music. Yeah, that's part of the problem with playing the Lego games, is everybody and anybody is constantly claiming to own the copyright of the music and the sounds. Not so much the visuals. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article, Demon Gaze Extra, free limited time DLC collaboration characters have been announced. I don't even know what Demon Gaze is. Yeah, Demon Gaze. Well, these characters look very, very different. Yeah, you've got like some kind of brawler, and then some kind of sword fighter, and then some kind of sword fighter, and then you've got like a police girl, police outfit, archer. And see, this guy's outfit and this guy's outfit doesn't really seem to match this. And then you've got the elephant in the room here, where it's a tiny little girl in her like elementary school Japanese style PE outfit, basically. That's a very big difference. And then over here you've got incredibly different looking characters as far as art styles, as far as the different ways of drawing things. And then over here you've got incredibly different characters. So let's see which collaborations these are from. This is Undernaut's Labyrinth of Yomi collaboration characters. These are Undernaut's Labyrinth of Yomi characters 1. Then the Demon Gaze collaboration characters. And then NG collaboration characters. These are probably all from the same publisher, but these are all from very different games. At that level, I think the collaboration is not particularly great. Like, it's one thing to... It's one thing to... To have a collaboration and have the characters slightly off model and off character text, but yeah, that to have such drastic differences in a collaboration is really weird. EU now is telling me Indiana Jones 2, Lego Indiana Jones 2, has no sound at all. No, episode 43 of Indiana Jones 2 has no sound. I'll have to look at that. Again, that's you're finding all of my mistakes at this point, I think. I have no idea how I could have made a video with absolutely no sound at all. But, yeah. It's possible. It's definitely believable that some weird thing happened where I kicked a plug and just played an entire game. I know that there's been a few other games like that where I've just had to put in parentheses at the end, no sound, sorry. But yeah, if that's not in the title, that was some horrible mistake that happened. And yeah, I only have like 4 or 5 Indiana Jones games that I own. I mean, I only have maybe 4 or 5 Lego games that I own that I haven't covered on my channel. And a lot of the Lego games started to get worse and worse in performance on my old PC, and they seem to not have as much performance issues on my new PC. So moving from an Intel CPU to an AMD CPU. So yeah, theoretically, if I got back into playing a lot of Lego games, I could catch up and go back and maybe try and play Indiana Jones 2 a second time and replace the series.
Save yourselves.
But YouTube is weird like that. You can't just replace a video in place. You lose the views. So I could private the old series and then recover them.
There is not a soul without sin.
That's what like the completionist is doing on his YouTube channel. Is he's playing the first 100 games he covered before. But I also criticized him for doing that, for not moving forward in his gaming journey and just being stagnant. So that would be a weird decision on my part. Plus, I know there's probably 3 or 4 Lego games still that I haven't purchased. The newest Lego Star Wars remake is probably going to be delayed again, and hopefully it's good. And if they remake in the Lego Star Wars games, it wouldn't be that far behind it that they would probably try and remake the Lego Indiana Jones games. And just re-release more modern, better engine versions of those games that have been rethought and redone. Particularly the early Lego games like Star Wars and Indiana Jones that didn't have any real open world aspects.
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
This, I guess. And then heal this, I guess.
Keeps the doctor away. Harder, faster, holier.
Then involve that.
You were done for. Put your legs into each prayer.
More than likely, if episode 43 of Indiana Jones has no sound,
Straight eyes forward.
there's probably a high chance that either 44 or 42 also have no sound. I tended to record several episodes in a row. EU says if you want to play a new Lego game, I recommend Lego DC Super Villains. I don't think I've bought that one yet. Yeah, I have some DLC on Lego Batman 3 I need to get back to and playing. And then Lego DC Super Villains would be the next logical one to buy in the DC universe and play. But yeah, I don't think I have purchased it because I kind of just started falling behind as far as Lego games. There definitely was a point there where I was getting a lot of views from Lego games, and while that's a good thing, it was also kind of a frustrating thing too, because more and more it felt like all my more and more of my content seemed to be skewing more and more towards feeling like it was targeted towards kids, and particularly nowadays, like as we are making decisions about what game to play, YouTube really doesn't want you to target your content towards kids and let you run ads on them. EU says no, 44 and 42 have sound. Okay, well that makes that easier, certainly. I'll look and see what possibly happened in 43. I probably caught it and just don't remember it. Like, I can barely remember what I did last week, let alone in 2017. Moving on with video game news. Yuri Kill the Culmination Games has a Binko trailer. Which, let's see. It's probably one of these character teaser trailers. It's just going to tell you about a character. Which doesn't really help you if you don't really even know what the game is itself. And yeah, it's a shoot 'em up. Yeah, this is that shoot 'em up that they basically announced a couple days ago, and they're already heavily emphasizing the characters. Alright, well, restore 2 defense there. Play that. And then the turn. My Hero 1's Justice DLC character, 1's Justice 2 DLC character, Hiroshi Shinoso has been announced. This is the first Season Pass 2 character for a fighting game. Wow. Very rarely do you win because the other character ran out of cards. But I will take that victory, certainly. That was a very long game. That's the problem with trying to win that way, is that you only win that way if the other player just plays terribly or you play forever. A game called Monster Crown launches October 12th for the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, and PC. It's currently early access on PC. We have a trailer just to remind us. Definitely looks like a Pokemon clone.
Is fighting and despair all you know?
And it definitely doesn't seem like it's going for any kind of modern graphics or anything. It feels like a first generation Pokemon clone, with the exception of being in color, which, I mean, I really wouldn't want to play a Pokemon clone where it was in black and white. There's 200 base monsters that you can fuse to create new species, which that's slightly different than Pokemon, but if anything, it's probably closer to Monster Rancher. But you'd still pretty much just call it a Pokemon clone to most people. Let's see. Next story, Spelunker HD Deluxe launches on August 6th in the West. For what consoles? PS4 and Switch. People definitely, or well, Giant Bomb people, really, were super excited about Spelunky 1. This feels like this is some kind of multiplayer, also playable version, which is weird. Spelunker, not Spelunky. Oh, I wonder if this game has nothing to do with the game Spelunky. I guess it very possibly doesn't. Yeah, it's a completely different developer and publisher. It just looks close enough that, and its name is close enough that it confused me. So, Spelunker HD Deluxe. Let's see.
Stop!
From Tozai, T-O-Z-A-I. Published by IN Games. I-N. Yeah. And it doesn't seem to be on Steam from what Gamatsu is telling me. That is certainly the problem with name confusion games. Where it's very easy to name a game and make a game look like another game and confuse people if they're not paying enough attention. EU says, well, we'll continue looking at different series in your channel, and if I find an error, I'll remind you in a future stream. Thank you. That would be very helpful. Like, I definitely know that if my YouTube channel ever got big enough to actually make any money, I would need to hire an assistant. Someone who probably has some artistic ability to make thumbnails would be a high priority, but I would also probably want to pay them if I could, a living wage to specifically just watch all the videos as they go through and find errors and report them back to me or fix them if they can. And potentially even make some light suggestions on how to improve as a performer or content creator in general. Although it would be kind of silly for somebody to look at my first videos and then say, well, you should fix this, this, and this, because I probably have improved on a lot of those. And my first videos were extremely different types of content than the more cold, calculating criticism that I tend to give nowadays, if I am giving criticism. Sometimes I'm also just zonking out, particularly in like collectathon games like Batman Arkham Asylum, where I am just going quiet a lot because there's just nothing more to say. Like, it's really sad how many times I've had to say that Arkham City comes off as a sexist game. I mean, there definitely is obvious sexism in it. One great example of that is you find at a specific point Harley Quinn has been tied to a pole, which, okay, maybe that's a Wonder Woman type bondage fetish thing, but it's not like they did any crazy rope bondage around her cleavage or anything. They just like ran duct tape around her legs, her ankles, and her stomach. So they didn't do anything there, but she has like duct tape over her mouth, and somebody took the effort to program it so that Batman could, at a button press, rip the duct tape off of her mouth, and she would say something, and then you could put the duct tape back on her mouth, and then rip it off again, and then put it on again, and then rip it off again. And I did that for like 10 times thinking I would get an achievement or something, and nothing ever happened. And it just smacks of a weird benevolent sexism when you have Harley Quinn, who is a major villain and deserves the respect of any other villain in the Batman universe, and in the Arkham universe, every villain in the Batman universe gets their head concussed into the ground as he smacks them and punches them. Like, Batman's incredibly violent, so for the game to not let you really hit any girls and not have any female thugs at all in an entire city, and for Batman to not even be able to like hit Harley Quinn when she's really attacking him. Like, there's a point early in the game where she attacks you. You can try and counter her attack. You kind of throw her to the side, and then 5 generic thug guys point guns at you and tell you to stop. Like, it's just insane benevolent sexism. Like, on one hand, in the real world, yes, hitting people is wrong, of any gender, of any make and model. Like, obviously, that's, I think, something most people would agree on, or most reasonable people would agree on. But in the universe of Batman, where he is just straight up smacking everybody, it's insane to think Batman wouldn't hit a girl. It's insane to think Batman wouldn't hit specifically Harley Quinn. And it's insane that you don't ever have a fight sequence with a lot of these female characters. And it was the same in the first Arkham Asylum game too, is that Harley Quinn showed up for a second and you just kind of deflected her. You don't really get to fight her. And it would have been interesting, I suppose, if that was a build-up, that you'd actually get to fight Harley Quinn in, say, the second or third game in the series, but that's not what they're doing. I know that's not what they're doing. So it really is this terrible design where all the females in the Batman game are objects of sexual desire and nothing else. They can't be fully fleshed out human characters. They can't be threats to Batman. They're all wimpy characters that he can easily wave off.
Good hands.
And I don't think that that's something that is just the case in the comic books, although we have definitely heard some sexism seems to exist in the DC universe in general. Or the DC writing room. But yeah. That really sucks that that's the thing I end up having to talk about when I'm actually criticizing Batman Arkham City, because it is just this huge ball of nothing, and then when there is something to talk about, it's not a positive thing. They really added no new features. They added a few gadgets, but they brought back a lot of gameplay mechanics from the first game that should have been removed or tweaked. They didn't tweak any of them. They just brought him back. And they really haven't added a lot of new features to counterbalance that in any way. Okay. Hit that one. Hit that one. And then hit that one. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Golf Club Wasteland launches September 3rd. I think we've seen a bit of a teaser of this before. I don't think this page is zoomed in right. Let's go ahead and zoom that out some more. And then see if we can center the page. No! Stop! No! There we go. I think that's better. Anyways, this is like a silly golf game where you're golfing in a wasteland, which might be funny. Honestly, though, it's probably something that you'd want to play in a mobile game, and like paying $10 for it on Steam is going to be probably a harder sell. Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals has added a PS5 and PS4 version. Unfortunately, I didn't like Oxenfree 1, so I don't think I'd bother to try and play Oxenfree 2. I really felt like the concept of it being a horror game was not well finalized or explained. The concept of it being a mystery game wasn't really done well. The conversation and sequences and the weird sequences don't happen often enough to justify playing it, in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't feel like there was enough of an experience as far as Oxenfree or a consistent gameplay mechanic. It really was just kind of a visual novel with very light point-and-click adventure experiences on top of it. EU says, also in LEGO Batman 3, the videos have the same name of the level that is done in that video, but in future games, the titles of different videos are only differentiated by the number of the video. Yeah, that is something I started to do. It was taking up just too much time. As I got older and less capable of making content and slower, it was just taking up way too much time to look up the levels, names, and put them in the video, even though it was probably getting me more views. It also became just increasingly difficult to differentiate and play a specific level only in the game. Yeah. If you have to specifically stop an episode when you do one level, sometimes one level would take 20 minutes, sometimes the level would take an hour and 20 minutes, and so it was a fairly inconsistent length. Not that I've gotten very good at having consistent lengths of episodes anyways. EU says, like, why you don't put the name of the pinball table in the pinball arcade videos. Yep, that is the exact reason right there. It is about 7 minutes, I think, last time I timed it, to schedule every single video. So if you have about 50 videos, you're talking 350 minutes of potential man hours, man minutes to schedule video, just when you're doing numbers. If I have to look up things, that's probably going to add another 2 minutes to every single schedule. And yeah, it could be more descriptive, particularly in Pinball Arcade, and that would be something that I might consider again if my YouTube channel ever got successful, is to have somebody go in there and put in some more descriptive titles. There is also a maximum limit of how long a title can be, so I was probably running up to some of that as far as the YouTube limitations with the Batman games. And theoretically, the YouTube algorithm doesn't work as well if the videos have different names, that different of a name in them. Theoretically, the YouTube algorithm should be able to figure out that if everything's the same up to a number sign and then the number is done, that's in a series. But YouTube doesn't really give you the opportunity to say this is a series and this is how it plays. The best you can do is make a playlist, and very few people can even find, yet alone use, playlists. So yeah, that's definitely a limitation too. Like, it totally would make sense for you to be able to upload a video and say, this is the series title, this is the episode title, and those would be different things. And because there would be a specific episode title, like the pinball table's names, then people specifically searching that pinball table would be able to find that specific video, and maybe that would interest them in looking at other videos. But yeah, YouTube's not good on its backend as far as its database and how it lines things up at all. It pretty much sucks, and when they do focus on adding new content or making changes, it usually is in some weird direction that's not useful to most people, or me in particular. But yeah. I think Pinball Arcade might be the only game, though, in the past few years that really falls under that category, in which I played only one specific table or focused on only one specific table. Almost every other game I've played doesn't have bespoke levels, or the bespoke levels are so far and separated out that you can't do it in one 1 hour episode anyways. And I don't think it would be very beneficial if I was in level 1 of a game and then it was level 1 part 1 and then level 1 part 2, level 3 part 4, you know, if you had to subdivide, and most levels don't even have names in most games. Yep. And yeah, my first Binding of Isaac videos were even crazier because I would put just like joke episode titles and I would just ramble for hours and hours, and those videos were like 4 or 5 hours long sometimes, doing a Binding of Isaac run. Sometimes I would list what character I was playing as Binding of Isaac, but sometimes I was just trying to be a comedic personality more than anything else. Let's see. That was incredibly difficult to, in those first Binding of Isaac episodes, to potentially find names for those series. But yeah, I've long since wanted, and theoretically YouTube says they're gonna upgrade the way you upload things to make it more of a bulk process, which is something you really need if you're doing a serialized series like covering video games, and something that most other YouTube content creators never do at all. And YouTube definitely wants you to make completely different videos every time and completely refresh yourself and never repeat a gag or repeat a topic, because they are built around this concept of maximizing the amount of new viewers they can get at all times, regardless of the fact that there's probably not that many people left on the planet that can watch YouTube. But yeah, ideally you would have a folder or a film strip, something that looked like that, when you go to YouTube Studio to upload a video. And you create this folder or you create this film strip that would just be a horizontal collection of thumbnails. Each thumbnail represents an episode. And ideally you would be able to upload your videos and then drag those videos just like an icon into that folder. And when you put it in the folder or you put it in the film strip, however they want to depict it, it goes, oh, we know exactly what to fill out in all of the fields that we have, and how to label everything. And we'll just add the next number to the episode number at the end there. And theoretically, if they could get a system like that, I could upload all my videos overnight and drag and drop them in less than, I would say 20 seconds per video instead of 7 minutes per video. This is definitely the reason why I when I am scheduling videos, I am miserable, and I always say I hate scheduling videos on YouTube. It's because it is just a horribly inefficient system. And yeah, I've put a lot of effort and time to try and make an automated system to make it work better, but I haven't succeeded anywhere to actually having an automated system to work on top of their system. Yep. There are, unfortunately, there are unfortunately not that many good content management systems, is what the software is called, that most people have ever seen or used anyways. They are all very much like hard-coded and programmed for very specific sites. People like Giant Bomb have a content management system, and that is one of the things that helps their videos get published and uploaded a lot easier. Not that Giant Bomb these days is making that many videos about video games. It seems like they're about to make a whole bunch of videos about nothing else. I watched one of their new shows where it literally is just talking about internet memes for an hour, and I'm like, that was kind of educational, but that also was a waste of time completely and had nothing to do with video games. Yeah, EU says, yeah, like episode 4 of Binding of Isaac is called I'm Not a... I'm not an expert. Smiley face. Laughing smiley face. Yeah. Yeah, I used to be funny, I guess. Honestly, when I started my YouTube channel, I was so out of it mentally. Like, I hadn't played any video games in like 4 or 5 years, and I was getting back to, this was the beginning of me getting back to playing video games. I wasn't really talking to anybody at all. Like, kind of hated my coworkers, kind of hated everybody I was dealing with. I had plenty of rambles and rants, and frankly, a lot of them are the exact same rambles and rants I still sometimes fall into when doing these live streams, but I've moved most of the rambling and ranting to the live streams so that the more evergreen content, as it's described, content that would always be worth watching, doesn't have that much in it. And instead, the live streams have that. But yeah, I would like just be completely rattled in my brain from insomnia in a lot of the Isaac things, and would just ramble while playing. And that definitely creates a weird situation, because I do want to go back and play Binding of Isaac Repentance now that is out, but that would be making very long videos, I imagine, and I just don't know if I could spare the time, and I have no idea what that content would really feel like while making it.
You were done for.
And yeah, fairly quickly, like that first series of videos I made, which was Binding of Isaac and FTL, Faster Than Light, and then I think maybe I started to get into playing Hearthstone a little bit around that first series. Like, by the time I decided to stop playing Binding of Isaac and FTL and move on to different games, I pretty much at that point had already burned out any kind of jokey personality things. And honestly, if I was going to try and have jokey personality conversations, like, short of imbibing marijuana or something to make me funnier, I think I would need to probably hire a writing room of some sort. Somebody that... a whole group of comedians who can just sit around every day and write things. And it would be a lot of leaning on callbacks and making the same joke over and over again. And see that there's this YouTube channel called Super Beard Bros, and they started doing that. If you watch a lot of their content, they start making the exact same joke every single series of games. So they'll play one game, and then it's like they've got a script in front of them. They'll just make the exact same joke, and it stops being something that's like a fun callback to a joke that happened before, and it becomes the Family Guy joke where Peter falls down and hurts his knee, and it just gets ridiculously longer and longer as he's writhing in pain. Wow, I totally eliminated this character's cards.
Let judgment fall.
Unbelievable! Unbelievable!
13th turn.
Impressive. Looks like you won.
Yeah. I don't think I would really want to try and move too much into being a comedian. Like I can be funny sometimes, off the cuff, but I moved my channel to be much more of a I don't know how my trailer explains it nowadays, but or if my trailer explains it well, a calm, concise, contemplative, critical coverage. Like not trying to be a high level YouTuber that's like super high energy, going, hey, what's up guys, make sure you smash that like button and things like that. I'm not trying to be like super silly. Like we have seen, I certainly over the years have seen a lot of video game critics, quote unquote, getting turned into video game comedians, where they're not really criticizing the game or saying anything about the game, and they're just using it as a backdrop. Game Grumps is kind of a Game Grumps is kind of another example of that, where the games that Game Grumps are covering now don't really matter, and they're just using them as a backdrop to be silly. EU says episode 12 of Hearthstone is called At Least Pretend You're Not a Bot. Yeah. And almost all those titles are things I said over an extremely long amount of time. But yeah, when those episodes were like 3 or 4 hours long, and if I can only find one funny thing or one really funny thing to say in 3 or 4 hours, it's not good. Also, most comedy content, when you look at Game Grumps or even Giant Bomb, almost all this content works because you have 2 or 3 different people around the table. So one person can have a lull in what they're talking about, or just have an off day, or just not talk at all, and the other person can pick up the slack. That's why you see like news reporters always have usually 2 people at the desk. So if one gets choked up or one is coughing, the other can jump in and start talking, and you don't have dead air or somebody just coughing on screen. But it also allows you to give a break to people and catch their breath. Moving on, back to video game news. Blue Reflection Second Light details Hiyori Hirahara crafting, construction, and battle. So, Blue Reflection is like one of the 2 or 3 games we've seen where it's Japanese girls entering a VR world. Yeah. What Blue Reflection might very well be doing here, Blue Reflection Second Light, in a weird way, is it might be pushing the series of Japanese JRPGs that have female characters into a more neutral place, less lewd place, compared to something like Senran Kagura or even Neptunia. Blue Reflection Second Light may very well be an example of where PlayStation 4 censorship has pushed the series, and I wouldn't be surprised if 4 or 5 years down the line Japanese companies are saying we can't make these style of JRPG games anymore because they're not family friendly enough for PlayStation, even when you are just having them in very normal Japanese schoolgirl outfits. There's like no high knee stockings, no short skirts, no tears in the clothing. It's definitely not trying to be that lewd. Even their outfits in the fantasy world are barely showing any skin compared to something like Senran Kagura. So this might be an indication of the death of those lewd JRPG games that once existed, replacing it with something that I think many would argue is more boring. And I imagine we won't really see that many cases of games that look like Blue Reflection Second Light for that long before we start to just see more games like Ni no Kuni where they just straight up go kid friendly. Of course, you do have some pushback to that idea. You still have Atelier Ryza and Sinrin Kagura games and Neptunia games. So there's a bit of that. I'm still looking for a decent Oni Chalmberg new game to come out at some point. That would be nice. Let's go and play this. Let's see. Gametsu says Deathloop has gone gold, which just means that they have a version that they're going to put on discs. There'll still will almost certainly be a day one patch. The crafting adventure game Witchwood adds a PS5 and PS4 version launching this fall. This is the second game we've seen that has added PlayStation versions, which makes it definitely feel like PlayStation at some point here has started to negotiate a little bit better with independent developers and other developers to get their games to come to the PlayStation. Whereas it seems like for a while there, not that many people are going to even try to be like PlayStation wasn't even going to try to court people to come to their consoles. This looks interesting as a game. It may be far too much crafting for anybody's liking and may be far too much of a survival game or a game with survival mechanics. It's coming out on Steam in the fall, so it's something I'll keep a small eye on. Okay. So ideally, you'd want to do this. And then, so you hit something like this, and then hit something like that. It's probably about the best I could do. Well, actually, I could have evolved this. EU says he's leaving the stream. Thanks for chatting. Here in Catalonia, he says it's past midnight, so it's pretty late. Yeah, sorry. Yep. If I could train myself to wake up a little bit earlier, I would have tried to stream a little bit earlier. But yeah. Have a good night, EU, I suppose. It feels a little weird saying that to a fan, but okay. Moving on, Focus Home Interactive acquires Dotemu, the company behind Streets of Rage 4, Windjammers 2, and more. Acquisitions are happening like crazy. I feel like at some point there's going to have to just be huge sell-offs too. Gamatsu says Sol Cresta details a dock and split system and formations, which Sol Cresta I think is a shoot 'em up game. It'd be interesting if there was a card game where cards docked and merged, but I think that'd be fairly crazy. Yep, this is a shoot 'em up game. Honestly, that concept is probably not terrible to merge three different characters in different ways to have different types of attack. But I'm not sure if that isn't just making a already complicated game like shoot 'em ups even more difficult. Like I could definitely see the argument that you shouldn't bother to try and make shoot 'em ups even more complicated than they were before. by adding more concepts and gameplay mechanics.
Bob, you're mean.
Hmm. Let's see. The game A Short Hike is coming to PS4 this fall. It's currently available for Switch and PC. Let's see what it looks like on Steam.
Bow before my tempest.
I think this is one people liked. Yeah, overwhelmingly positive. It's a game where you play as a bird kind of flying around. The graphics look kind of blurry, kind of pixely. It's on my wish list already, $7.99. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Lady Hellbender gameplay cinematic is now available. Like, interesting looking character. It's probably way too little too late though. Wait a minute. No, this isn't the Marvel game I was thinking of. This is the Guardians of the Galaxy game. She looks very big. She's bigger than Drax. Now, arguably, this is basically a Telltale game, but I don't think it's being made by Telltale. Arguably, though, I think you could make an argument that Lady Hellbender here is being depicted as a very thick, very tall character, but I wouldn't say she's being drawn like obnoxiously fat in some weird way, as big is beautiful type mentality or anything like that. And I have no idea what Lady Hellbender looks like normally in the comics, so that might be very accurate. I would say this one picture does show some fairly thick thighs. Which at a certain point, if you're going to be that big and that thick, I kind of think I would like to see a little bit more muscle on the thighs too.
I pray that you will be freed from suffering.
But yeah. I suppose it's not, we made it to a new rank. It's not really worth it to be super hyped on the Guardians of the Galaxy games or any announcement for any game, and if at this until it actually comes out and gets some reviews. I'm gonna play this because I don't believe we have any more missions. We've done all the daily quest, oddly. Moving on, Iron Harvest for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One launches in late 2021. I think arguably saying anything's launching in late 2021 is somewhat optimistic. This does look like a real-time strategy game with mech walking characters.
Activate. Enhance. Fire.
There was a game somewhat similar to this many years ago, but seems like they're doing a similar concept again. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say there, so we'll move on. Carrion is coming to PS4 in 2021. Seems late to the party again. This is like the third or fourth PS4 announcement. Arietta of the Spirits launches August 20th for PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. Let's see what trailer shows us here. It's kind of a top-down hack and slash game with a lot of rolling. Yeah, looks like it might be interesting. See, it has a Steam page, but do I need to put it on the fall list if it's not out yet? No, I really don't. Let's see. Gamatsu has Bang Dream Girl Band Party for Switch trailer, which this is definitely another new idol group. Probably a rhythm game, if I was to guess. And question, I suppose, as to how the game actually plays and if the music rights on this would give it any chance of coming to the West. Very colorful. Yep. I suspect this probably won't come to the West. It has been on the App Store for iOS and Google Play in Japan. Yeah, but those music rights games tend to not to ever make it to the West, and there's just too much licensing on it. Too much licensing issues, certainly. Megaton Musashi launches November 11th in Japan, which looks like it's a mech game. And you show the trailer, looks interesting. And the gameplay doesn't look too bad either. It looks very hacking, slashy, very fast-paced. Maybe this is the better way to make a mech game, is to make it much more of an action experience versus a mechanical simulator, which most mech games turn out to be flight simulators. It seems like your character gets upgrades to his components, which looks interesting. Then you have, I don't know if you'd really call this the moe art style or just really young looking kids, pilots. Like, I was just looking at some footage of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and boy is the animation style changed, and boy is the kind of depiction of young kids changed with the moe art style and other more modern Japanese art styles. Evangelion in particular is just like directly depicting all of the kids as kids. Like very recognizable, relatable kids, which is partially a problem in Evangelion, because like there's a lot going on and a lot depicted that happens to those kids. And I imagine if you were a teenager or a preteen watching Evangelion, you would probably relate to the kids in Neon Genesis. But as an older adult who probably is more thinking along the lines of their own children, that probably gives them some lack of happiness, like some dissatisfaction by seeing some of the terrible things that happen to the kids in Evangelion. Like, it probably causes a much more visceral reaction, would I guess be the best way to say that. The Famitsu sales have been updated on Gamatsu, so let's see the new games. Neo, the Old World Ends With You for Switch, topping the first place. Great Ace Attorney Chronicles topping the third place. And then you've got some standard Switch games filling out the top 10 until you get to the PlayStation 4th version of Neo, the World Ends With You, taking the 10th spot. And then you don't see another PlayStation 4 game until the 23rd spot, Ghost Warrior Contracts. And then Great Ace Attorney for PS4 was 28th spot, and Ark was 30th spot. Which, it's weird because you're seeing a growth in the number of sales of the PlayStation 5 in Japan with the hardware sales. or we're seeing a decline with the Switch Lite sales, which in total, Switches and Switch Lites have sold a lot. But the software sales are not seemingly lining up with the hardware sales. So either there's a case where a lot of Japanese gamers are buying the PlayStation 5 to play games they already own, or to use them to not play games at all, or something else weird is happening. Elden Ring now has a Steam page. That's not really news, though. The Legend of Heroes Kuro no Kisekai Spriggan Edition has a soundtrack mini sample video, which, yeah, that's probably way past my level of interest to have a soundtrack mini sample on YouTube. Although that is an interesting idea, certainly, to start putting soundtracks of video game music on YouTube instead of trying to put it on something like Spotify, where you probably would never listen to it or hear it anyways, or I don't know, some other service specific to like Japanese fans only. I'm not sure if there's any video game music soundtrack that I want to listen to. I definitely was thinking about that recently, and there are some games that I like the soundtrack to, but I really just want to listen to that music while I'm playing the game. I want the full experience. It, kind of in the same way that I may like pepperoni pizza, but I probably don't want to eat just slices of pepperoni. Like, I would, certainly, if I was starving, eat slices of pepperoni. But I more than likely want it on the crust and sauce and cheese. Let's see.
Thy little canary. The truth will cut you down.
Take that one out. I do think, though, there is some level of improvement that needs to happen with soundtracks. They don't make a lot of sense on Steam. They don't make any sense, I think, on any of the other platforms. I don't think buying a soundtrack on Xbox or PlayStation or even Nintendo Switch makes sense, where a Steam Deck and a Switch kind of make like a great system where a soundtrack would be nice to potentially have. But also Steam in particular with its cell phone app could very nicely put if you have at least 8 play points gained plus X plus 50. So this could work. Let's see if this works. No, I gotta kill that first if I'm going to do that.
Ephemeral lives.
Begin.
Nothing shall alter the cosmic flow.
We've evolved this twice.
Do not sully this great
And I guess we'll hit that. Yeah. I think soundtracks definitely need some rethoughts, rethinking. Honestly, the best thing I think a lot of video game soundtracks could do is just putting their music out for free use so that people could use them in the backgrounds of their live streams. Moving on, trying to hurry here. The Japanese horror game Sugunochi is coming to Steam on August 13th. It includes 9 episodes. I don't know if I've seen this game before. I think maybe I have. It kind of looks like it's a fairly rough looking animation style, but maybe that is intentional to be off-putting. And for a horror game, I don't know if I can complain too much. I'd really like to see what kind of gameplay it is, because it kind of seems like you're just walking. This probably is if this is just kind of a visual novel style game that doesn't have a lot of interactivity, combining it combining several different games into one is probably the right move. They're calling it an action adventure indie horror thriller. I don't know if I really believe that. Comparing it to Hellblade's Suna's Sacrifice, which wasn't much of a game either. English, Japanese, Chinese. Alright, well, I guess I'll put this on the follow list. Unfortunately, I lost the rank. Yeah, the second I start just trying to have any variety, I lose rank. I don't know if there's a big penalty for losing rank, but you would theoretically want to just keep on working up the rank levels. Let's see. Gamatsu says Samurai Warriors series has topped 8 million units over the course of its entire series, though that's quite a lot. Latest entry is Samurai Warriors 5, but I'm fairly certain there's been at least a couple of spin-off Samurai Warriors games. And there's lots and lots of other Warriors style games that are spin-offs. Gamatsu says Yuru Kill, the Culmination Games, Mass Murderers trailer. This is, I believe, the shoot 'em up game again. Yeah, they've put out like 3 different trailers around this game in 3 days. That is too extreme as far as pushing your advertising. Demon Gaze Extra second trailer and screenshots are now available. Maybe we could get a better idea as far as what Demon Gaze is. And I know these trailers are too big. I just didn't bother to reload the page to get them to the right size. So we're seeing a lot of weird characters, many of which are kind of scantily clad. And it, to me, looks like it's trying to be a fairly fast-paced dungeon crawler experience. Yeah. It might very well be a free-to-play style or in-app purchase focused dungeon crawler experience, which I don't know if that would really work. They're calling it an RPG game. If it did come to the West, it would be coming to the PS4 and Switch more than likely, which, yeah, I guess it probably doesn't have a lot of in-app purchases if it's on consoles only. Although that may not be true these days. Moving on, Knockout Home Fitness launches September 28th in North America and October 8th in Europe. So, another Switch game, Switch exercise game, which Knockout Home Fitness seems like you're going to be fairly encouraging people to do some more wild swinging as exercise. These kinds of exercises that are kind of more focused around swinging, punching, and kicking, I don't think reach a level of understanding as far as if this was for self-defense at all. I don't think it has anybody watching you, telling you if you're doing the actions correctly, and it doesn't have somebody helping you break the mindset and the fear of getting hit yourself or hitting someone else. So I imagine you would do a game like this and you might think you might win in a fight, just to very quickly find out that you're still very much a coward and going to run away, which running away is the right move almost always in situations like that. Whereas the ring fitness Pilates exercises were just seemingly directly focused on exercise moves and only exercise moves instead of combining exercise and martial arts. Which, yeah, I guess in general that is apparently an opinion I didn't realize I had until this second, that the Taibo martial arts style exercises are probably bad for you. Now, if you were gonna actually do martial arts, that's a different thing, and if you're getting exercise while doing the martial arts, that's more's the better. But I wouldn't do an exercise routine around actions that feel like martial arts. And generally, I suggest people do Krav Maga more than any other martial arts, because it's the only martial art that makes sense in a modern time where knives and guns are prevalent, whereas most of the Kung Fu karate styles were martial arts that made sense hundreds of years ago in Asian countries. Let's see. Today happens to be the 30th anniversary of Metroid, and Nintendo of America put out a tweet 9 hours ago talking about Metroid Dread. And that's pretty much it. Like, no fanfare at all. No release. Here's another one. Not 30th anniversary, 35th anniversary. So, only slightly, Metroid only came out slightly after Super Mario Brothers, or Donkey Kong came out. I guess it would have to have been out that, and seeing it was just like a Nintendo video. I guess I shouldn't show that because Nintendo. So they put out, alright, actually scrolling down their YouTube page, they put out several tweets. But yeah, there's no game, no new game trailer, teaser, no new announcement, nothing like that, nothing of any real interest or newsworthiness. The bigger news that came out is net sales and profits are down at Nintendo, allegedly because Animal Crossing set the bar too high. Which, yep, that is in part a problem with the idea of trying to have every single quarter and every single fiscal year have more sales than the previous year. The idea of unlimited increased profits does not make sense. Well, this isn't going to be helpful. I messed up something with the uBlock Origin plugin, where I'm blocking too much of the Gamma Sutra page. So all I can see is the headlines at this point. Nintendo Switch has sold over 89 million units in just 4 years. Let's see. That'll be something else I'll have to work on. Good news is I don't have that many Gamma Sutra articles. Sucker Punch is hiring an AI systems designer. I can't tell you anymore. Check out Gamasutra. Focus Home Interactive acquired the retro game studio .emu for $45.5 million. Outriders, a near replicant remake, can't prevent the sales slide at Square Enix. The mobile Neo game is on Android, and I happened to see it and look at the reviews, and it apparently is crashing quite a lot, and people are very unhappy with it. And honestly, even the reviews that aren't complaining about the crashing seem to say it's not much of a game. And it almost certainly was never going to be much of a game, and it's a great example of people taking a success or surprise success like Nier Automata and then throwing way too much money into projects to try and milk it by making mobile projects or remake releases of the old game that probably didn't need to be made. I appreciate the remake of the old game being released, but yeah, the mobile game definitely sticks out as being unnecessary. Let's see. Valve, according to Gamasutra, says the Steam Next Fest games saw more wishlist and sales during 2020, which more, I suppose, compared to 2019. Game sales are down at Sega, but freemium titles and new releases are performing strongly, according to Gamasutra. And Niantic has said they have formed an internal task force to address the concern of Pokemon Go fans after they reverted the changes of the way you've found Pokemon in Pokemon Go. They had changed it to make it easier and nicer for people who weren't going out because of the pandemic, and then they undid it, and people are very unhappy with them undoing that assistance. Because the game was already too grindy.
For the end is near.
Here we have a game on Steam that's all in Asian languages. It's some kind of asset flip mining survival game, probably Chinese. $31.41. It's pretty expensive for a Chinese game. No to that. Here we have another one that looks like it's a mobile phone Chinese game. Free to play with in-app purchases. At least that's better. Need to burn through a few of these. Here we have another one that looks like it's a puzzle game, which I don't recognize. Chinese only for $6.99. Here we have a game called Starmancer, which looks like it's some kind of base building game. Doesn't look terrible, but we can see the mixed reviews already exist, which means I don't need to bother to put it on the follow list just to take it off the follow list. It's early access for $19.99. Here we have a game called Gun Create, which looks like another kind of low effort Chinese game. Free Japanese. Okay, well, I was wrong about that one. Still looks like garbage. Next we have a game called Star Hunter DX, which doesn't look like anything. Looks like it's a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up game. It's not my style of game. $12.74, bunch of languages. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything particularly impressive there. There we have a game called Haven Park, which looks like it's an adventure exploration game. $7.64, whole bunch of languages. It's positive so far. I think we can put that on the follow list. Here we have Watashi no Kokoro, which I believe in Japanese, Watashi is the female word for I. No is the word for the, and Kokoro, unless it's being misspelled differently here, is the word for your heart, the organ, the heart, or symbolic organ of heart as in love. It is not the sound effect of a heartbeat, which would be doki doki, a heartbeat fluttering with passion or love. So, I am the heart, literally translated. It clearly is just a small jigsaw puzzle. No, I saw one of them had more pieces. But it's just one of these jigsaw puzzle games. English only, 119. I suspect if you were to say Watashi no Kokoro to someone who speaks native Japanese, they would look at you funny. I suspect that that makes very little sense to a native Japanese speaker. Next, we have a game on Steam called Fly Achievements, which looks like kind of a garbage infinite runner, falling down the tube dropper type game. Yeah. $2.99, bunch of languages, no interest. Here we have VR Graffiti World, which that might be interesting if you could do graffiti really, really well in VR, but I suspect you can't. $1.19, single player, VR, English only. I'll put it on the follow list, kind of because it's cheap, but I suspect there's nothing here. I think you would almost certainly never be able to create something like this, regardless of how good of an artist you are. There's an interesting thought to certainly have around the quality of an artist. If they're a graffiti artist, can they draw or spray paint images at a smaller scale, or is it a case that the fact that you have so much canvas allows you to hide a lot of flaws and a lot of mistakes? Like, because if you kind of have shaky lines and then you come back and spray paint everything with a thick black line around it, that can cover up a lot of mistakes, certainly. And that's part of why there is a distinctive art style. See, here you don't have thick black lines and you don't have a white line in between the regular picture and the black line to even highlight the black outlines even more. And that's why these look pretty bad in comparison. See, next we have a game called VR Basketball Hoops. I think we say no. And honestly, I think the Saturn V developer is flooding the Steam market with garbage. $1.99. See, yeah, we just looked at VR Graffiti World. I'm just going to immediately take it off the follow list because he put out 2 games at the same time. And I am not going to consider VR Mad Asylum for the exact same reason. Like, people need to be punished more. I also feel like this, if this is not directly stolen art from The Evil Within, it looks very similar to that stolen art. To that art. Yep. And same is true for VR Immortal Fight. Which, yeah, definitely a lot of these are asset flip games. And that's part of the reason I'm not willing to consider them too. Yeah, we have all the daily quests done, so. Here we have a game called Eat the Wounded, which looks like an asset flip survival game also. With zombies, $5.59, English only. Here we have Farmer's Life, which is mixed already, so I think we can skip that.
Is fighting and despair all you know?
Far too many of these survival games. One thing I would say about Farmer's Life, though, is that at least it feels very like thought through and visually polished. Early access English and Polish. I would half want to go and just see why is it reviewed so negatively. Yeah. I guess I'm going to give this a second chance and put it on the follow list, even though it really shouldn't get one. But I kind of would like to see if somebody can pull it through and fix that. Here we have a game called Seliga, which is a horror asset flip walking simulator with a flashlight and some major dark screenshot syndrome. See, the problem with this, once again, is these horror games are getting so good looking that it's getting almost impossible to reject things outright. This is English and Turkish. There's 3 reviews. I'll give it a follow, but yeah, this is a game with these kinds of screenshots. This is a game that should probably just be rejected immediately. Let's see. Next, we have a game called Eluxia Enigma, which is a precision platformer. $8.99, English only. Here we have a game called Sam and Maru, which looks like it is a programming game. I don't know if it's visually polished enough to be an interesting programming game. I don't know how many more programming games I even want to really play. It's $9.99, English only. They are comparing it to Human Resource Machine, and that is a programming game also. But part of the benefit of Human Resource Machine, which was way better than the sequel 1 Billion Humans, is your limited coding and a lot of drag and drop functionality that doesn't really feel like it's in this game. It feels like you're going to straight up just have to type. And if I'm going to type programming code, I might as well just be programming for real at that point. Next, we have a game on Steam called Death Trash, which looks like it's a stealth game, top-down twin stick shooter with some horrific imagery. Early access, $17.99, English and German. Rated very positively, so I'll put it on the follow list because it's on early access. Otherwise, I might consider putting it on the wish list. Here we have a game called Doomsday Vault, which I don't know if this is... You're apparently saving plant life and then collecting it through solving puzzles. To get more crops. Seems kind of like it's 2 concepts in general. Like you're solving puzzles to get seeds, and then and that's almost like a Lorecraft Go puzzles. And then when you get the seeds, you take them to a vault, and maybe there's a plant growing simulation there also, but maybe not. That may be kind of nothing. $15.29 is fairly a large amount of money. Bunch of languages. I'll put it on the follow list, but it's definitely asking a lot. Well, do this. And the turn, I guess. Here we have a game on Steam called Android, which looks like an old platforming game, 2D platformer. $4.99, English only. Nothing of interest there. Here we have a game called Banana Run, which looks basically the same game, precision platforming 2D game. $5.39, English only. And then Yellow Ball Man, which looks like it's a collection of very old school looking low resolution games. $2.39, English and Japanese. Here we have Dodgeball Academia. I thought this was already on my fall list. Apparently not. $2.24 to $22.49. Whole bunch of languages. I think there's more to this than it just being an action game. It's more of an RPG game where you take turns. I did want it on the fall list, so I'll put it on the fall list. So far it seems to be fairly well received. Although I could easily see an RPG around do it playing dodgeball getting very annoying very quickly.
It looks like I'm up. Ow. It
Hey.
looks like I'm up.
Yeah, if you think about something like Yu-Gi-Oh! In particular, though, you have that same concept where Yu-Gi-Oh! Is around playing a card game. If it weren't for a lot of effort in the writing and the silliness of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Would have gotten very boring very quickly. And honestly, playing some of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games are kind of boring because you're just playing single-player card games. Sometimes. The more online Yu-Gi-Oh! Games are better to play. Alright, well. Hit that one.
Those are the best medicine.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Blood of the Alchemist, which looks like it's some kind of top-down RPG game of no interest. $7.99, English only. Here we have a game called Ships at War, which looks bad. $14.99. Here we have Dark Roll Free Kick Challenge, which looks like an asset flip free kick soccer game. And it's like balls playing against balls, which seems ridiculous. Free to play, but then a premium pack of $12.59, English only. Yep. I don't see why you would want to play something like that instead of just playing Rocket League or something else.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Such a lovely couple.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Jupiter Hell, which looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter. It doesn't look good. A lot of dark screenshots here. $19.99, English only. It's rated very positively. Let's give it one more chance. If I don't like the screenshots, I suppose I'll look at the trailer, see if it can convince me I actually want to play it. It looks like all the gameplay is still really dark. Just far too dark for a top-down twin-stick shooter.
This here's the shady part of town.
Nope. I just don't see anything here. I don't know why it's so positively reviewed. I just don't see a game there that I want to play.
Life after death for you.
The world cycles on.
Alright. Can we do this and something else? Yes. And then just go ahead and evolve here. Next we have a game called Game About Games, Interactive Video Game Critique, which I think is pretty much just an asset flip joke game. Or if it's not a joke game, it's someone trying to do their podcast while in a video game form. See, like, I have no idea what even this video is trying to explain. Game about games contains small excerpts from Let's Plays of various video games. Is it some specific Let's Player, or is it just random people's footage that they stole? Yeah, this is an English and Russian language game, and it feels like what they've done is they've just stolen Let's Players' content and put some text around it, and are trying to sell it as a video game. Seems shady as you can get, really. Or at the very least, it seems very lazy. See, next we have a game on Steam called Order Road, which looks like a very low polygon dungeon game, for lack of a better description. Looks terrible. Early access for $4.14, English and Russian again. Seems like we're starting to see the Russian trolls again as far as games.
There's no other way. There's no retreat.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Weltriek Political Strategy Simulator, which looks like nothing. Early access, $5.09, English and Russian again. Yeah. Let's see, well, this next game might be a little too much for YouTube. Family friendliness. Jumping immediately into showing a anime girl in her underwear. But yeah, that's pretty much the only screenshot like that even. This game called Idle Days. It's tagged as a visual novel. It's $10.39. It's full Japanese language, English and Chinese subtitles. Says it includes partial nudity and sexual themes. It's rated positive so far, so I guess I'll put it on the follow list, but yeah. I'm still not really at any point where I feel like the visual novels are going to get a lot of coverage. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to get down to a point where I'm covering a lot of visual novels. Let's see. According to Gamatsu, Olympia Soaring launches September 9th in the West. This looks like it's probably a otome visual novel. Yep. So, rated M for mature. Yep, definitely looks like a young maiden otome visual novel. Can't really say too much else. Alright. Is now the time to play this? Yes, it is.
Give birth to a new world.
I just want to fill the emptiness.
Heal.
You're in
Go ahead and end the turn. Here we have a game on Steam called Mythos, which don't think is visually polished enough. It seems like it's going in a different art style, certainly, and I appreciate that, but for a Filipino action RPG game, but at $10.99 and supporting only English, which you'd think it would support Filipino, language also, unless Filipinos speak only English, which I'm not sure that's true. I don't think that's true. I'd like this idea. I hate the graphics on that. Hit that one. And hit that one. And then in the turn. I think we might be able to finish all the news at this level, and ending at C2 is kind of a nice place to end anyways. So I think we'll stop playing Shadowverse and just finish the last bits of news. So Gamatsu says Pups and Purrs Animal Hospital launches November 11th in the West. I'd like to see a really great version of this type of game. They tend to not to be great versions. They tend to look pretty awful and look like mobile games. This doesn't look that bad. Seems to have a decent variety of interactions and such. Yeah, we got up to this, so that gets us a little bit more gold, which that's nice. Let's see. Undernaut's Labyrinth of Yomi launches October 28th in the West, and the PS5 is in 2022, which can't even watch this video on YouTube unless we launched it. What kind of game is this? An RPG game? Yeah, in an interest of saving time, I just don't think I'll bother to even watch the trailer. Let's see. Dairoki Agents of Sakura Tani launches December 2nd in the West. This also might be an otome visual novel. There is certainly something to be said that these otome visual novels tend to all look a little too similar. They all seem to play on the same thought over and over again. Whereas the more male-focused visual novels are much more varied. Variable Barricade has been delayed to February 2022 in the West. This is yet another otome visual novel. This is all from the same company, though, that announced all of these announcements, so that is kind of the problem, too, of having a group announcement for your company. If half of your announcements are good and half of your announcements are bad. This looks like this is set in a more modern time, which I do appreciate that idea more. Instead of it all seeming like it's coming in feudal times, happening in feudal times. Lover Pretend is coming to the West for Switch. Which, yeah. Really can't have too much to say about any of these games from their trailers. Just good looking anime guys. And potential romances for the one female character. Yep. Let's see. And quite a lot being announced here. For the same style of game, you really shouldn't be announcing more than 2 of the same style of game in one event. Paradox is coming to the West. So clearly Otomate, which I believe is the publisher, has decided to bring over a lot of their Japanese-only games to the West, which is probably not that hard if they are just PC games or Switch games. I think these are all Switch games. Kimi wa Yukimi ni Koen ni Gao is also coming to the West, which, surprise, surprise, it's just another Otomate published Otome visual novel. I'm saying Otome too much now. And then Pio4A, Episodo 1926 is also coming to the West. And you can burn through these, I suppose, fairly well. I can't complain too much about this setting because this is more London 1920s times art style. And we do see some games like this, but not a ton of games with that art style. Yep. Let's see. According to Video Games Chronicle, PUBG has been renamed and the game could be going free to play, it's claimed. A free trial is confirmed. Among reports the model will be adopted permanently. What is the new PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds is now going to be known as PUBG Battlegrounds, which is stupid because that means the PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds : Battlegrounds. You're saying Battlegrounds twice. That seems really silly. Here we have a game on Steam. We'll have to go through a few more of these. Called Lost Tria, which just looks like an asset flip hex grid game. Free to play. Online PvP only. Here we have a game called Before Akira, which doesn't look like anything of any quality. $2.99 English only. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, this looks like this is just Arabic, like Torah, not Torah, Quran writing. This is like a quote from the Quran, I would almost certainly guess. Oh. Yeah, does not look quality as far as the game though. And that's all I'm really concerned about. Let's see. I believe the Epic Games Store had another problem. Like, they were looking into issues preventing owners of the deluxe edition of Back from Blood from signing into the beta. Apparently that was 21 hours ago. They fixed it 7 hours ago. Let's see, here we have a game on Steam called Prop Hunter, which I've seen plenty of Prop Hunter style games. This one seems to almost be using the Source engine. Early access, $2.79 English full audio. Since it's multiplayer focused though, it wouldn't be something I could cover anyways. Video Games Chronicle says Dead Space is reportedly targeting a 2022 release date. EA says the remake was one of the most demanded titles for the US, maybe just after Skate. Which at certain points, I guess that means that they are potentially going to get some pressure to make American McGee Alice remake too. Although it seems like Tencent is in talks with American McGee to make Alice Asylum the third game in the series, or the Oz game or something. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tencent does make that happen. They also said that they were going to remove the parts that didn't work in Dead Space 1, and there's probably more room to interpret and misinterpret that statement for Dead Space than most games, because the parts that didn't work could mean almost anything, and it might mean they're getting rid of the turret section that pretty much everybody hated in Dead Space 1. It might mean that they're getting rid of individual bullets, which got replaced in Dead Space 3 with generic bullets for all weapons. It might mean that they are getting rid of the you have to stand in one spot to aim your gun. You can't run and gun, which they modified later. There is, I think, always this danger and always this focus where the Dead Space reboot could just have this urge to want to put in content that was in Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3, and improvements that were in Dead Space 2 or Dead Space 3 that the players didn't really like. So yeah, there's a lot of room for Dead Space Remake to be kind of a mediocre game. There's a lot of room for it to be a very divisive game. That it could be a very bad game. We just don't know. The one thing I can say is it still feels like they are very much just teasing Dead Space Remake as a way of stealing oxygen out of the room and having people not talk about the Callisto Protocol, which honestly we should be way more hyped and talking about the Callisto Protocol. Like pretty much every time we see an article about Dead Space, there should be an article mentioning a point in that article mentioning the Callisto Protocol instead. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dead Space remake never gets made, and it's just like a not Too Human. Was that game? Beyond Good and Evil 2 type game. Here we have a point-and-click adventure game called Almost My Floor, which, well, it's tagged as an adventure puzzle game, but to me it looks like a point-and-click adventure. It's $8.99 English and Russian. I'll put this on the follow list. It looks slightly interesting. Here we have a game called Operation Body Count from Ziggurat, which probably means it's an older game being republished. $4.68 English only. Even if it is an older game, though, that's not worth it. Video Game Chronicles was willing to make an article about Metroid celebrating its 35th anniversary today. Yeah, that's definitely some old artwork that probably never came to the West. And here's a Japanese commercial. Yeah, boy, do these commercials look terrible. Like really, really bad by modern standards. This animated outfit looks weird because if these are supposed to be the joints that let you bend, which would make sense, I could get the idea of wanting to bend to the left and right on your hips and on your thighs. But you would have the solid piece that probably wouldn't bend if this is just hard metallic armor. And I could almost understand the idea of being able to breathe in and out and expand and contract that way. But I have no idea what this zipper concept is all about. It's like, yeah, it's almost like they intentionally put a zipper on the outfit to hide the fact that it was a female. But I mean, also you could make an argument that maybe Samus Aran does use a zipper with her outfit when using bathroom. Who knows what happens in the future. That's just a weird design. But also it kind of would look like a diaper no matter what. So I could see why you would want to focus the artwork to about the headpiece where the focus is. Is there anything really important to talk about? Not really, as far as that. Yeah, we have a game called Action Entities, which looks like it's a survival first-person shooter, low-effort game, $4.99, bunch of languages. Here we have another old game called Corridor 7, Alien Invasion from Ziggurat for $6.69. Let's see, we already talked about the Pokemon Go team responding to the boycott over in-game. The boycott seems to cause the response more than the petition did. Here we have a game called Accidents on the Simple Road, which looks like nothing of interest. Online PvP, English and Russian. According to Gamma Sutra, the PopCap alumni have launched a new free-to-play studio called Manta Ray London. And oddly, this Gamma Sutra article loaded when the other didn't. Yeah. So that should be investigated more. The Binding of Isaac games are now, for Binding of Isaac Repentance, are available exclusively at store.nicholas.com. We can just show this. If you want to pre-order them, which, yeah, while these are DLC on PC, you would have to buy the new version separately on anything else. According to Gamma Sutra, Sony apparently wants AAA games to support VR for the PlayStation VR 2. I'm sure they do. I don't see how PlayStation would be willing to throw a lot of money to make that happen, though. Let's see. Football Manager will no longer use Manchester United name following a trademark dispute. It will now be called Manchester UFC. Onwards, which, yeah, there does seem to be some fairly large nastiness that happens around trademarks and soccer clubs. I'm not well informed on it, but there does seem to be a lot of stuff to focus on. Here we have a game called Zinco: A Fox's Tale, which looks like it might just be a simplistic walking game, but doesn't look terrible. They're calling it an adventure platformer. It's free. Is it a student project? Yes, it is. English full audio. That would explain why it does look so empty, is that it's a student project. Alright, well, I'll put it on the wish list because it's a student project. Next we have a game called Descent: Legends of the Dark, which is some kind of board game, but it looks visually polished, so I can't immediately dismiss it. Free. This is a companion app. So, unfortunately, you really can't play this. And we've seen enough of these companion app concepts that there needs to be some curation on Steam's part to have a tag here saying this is a companion app, or this app requires you to own the actual physical board game. Just a red warning at the top. Because it's free, it's not a big risk if somebody downloads this and then they can't do anything with it, but it kind of sucks that somebody might download this game thinking you can actually play a game and you can't. See, next we have a game called Simple Fish Adventure, which seems like you play as a fish trying to bounce all over the place, kind of like a goat simulator type game. $2.59. I'll give this a follow, but it's probably too much of a joke to really cover. Here we have a game called Misery Street that looks awful. Looks like an Undertale clone, low effort Undertale clone. $5.99. English only. And apparently, Gamasutra needed some more clickbait titles, so they put out this article. Mass Effect, what's really behind the Miranda Lawson freakout? Which this certainly seems like it's mostly a clickbait title games. What's funny is Gamasutra definitely has put out articles in the past saying, like praising the fact that they remade Mass Effect and changed the camera angles so it wasn't focusing on the behind of the character. Of course, if you were playing as male Shepard, you would still see the behind of the male Shepard, so you're punishing just all the fans of butts regardless of gender. And this is just kind of an awkward camera angle in first place, so if they said these were awkward camera angles and they were going to fix them, that would be fine. But then they came out and specifically it would definitely, they came out specifically trying to get some woke points for changing the camera angles, and they shouldn't have done that. And if you get to the bottom of this article, it says fixing the camera work in Mass Effect 2 and 3 doesn't fix all of Miranda's problems, but it lets her have a little more dignity for a remaster that's chiefly offered 4K graphics rather than so much of the polish the series required. This is still a small miracle. So they come off and they pretend like they're on one side just to eventually drag you through a very long article for Gamasutra. This is way longer, as an opinion piece that's not really news and what's reporting on, to try and drag you to their side that changing the camera angles is a good thing. When it really isn't, in my opinion, because it's coming from the perspective of censorship first and foremost. This isn't, we're giving you a better shot of what the artist was trying to focus on, and thus we've clipped out the butt that was just on the corner of the screen. This is, we've intentionally censored this screenshot and this camera angle, and we've not done it to improve the vision or anything, just to remove. We've done it to remove, not to add. And so anything starting from the perspective of censorship, I can't agree with in any way. Let's see. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Razenroth 2, which looks like it's a top-down action RPG, twin-stick shooter type game. $4.49. English full audio and several other languages. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that I don't care anything really about Mass Effect and the camera angles. That is like not anywhere close to our biggest problems as far as censorship in the video game world. It may just be indicative of other problems that exist much more, but it's not where the major censorship is happening here. Here we have a game called Mandakaru, which is some kind of match 3 2048 type game. Let's see, $1.19, English, Portuguese, Brazil. Don't think it has quite enough polish. I don't like the dark background and the color gradient for the background. Here we have a game called Cats Classic OnNet Connect, which seems to be just a bunch of pictures of cats, and you match them. Match 3, match 2, $1.59 English only. I don't actually think this is a match 3 game. I think it's a match 2 game. Yeah. The thing, we've managed not to even talk about the Activision Blizzard lawsuit, and I think news cycle on that is dying down at this point. But the thing about that lawsuit, if any of that is true, which I have to assume some of it is, really highlights how there's, in the gaming industry and the working world in general, way bigger issues that need to be addressed and fixed before you start talking about a virtual female shepherd's butt being shown via virtual camera. A virtual character being objectified should be really at the bottom of the totem pole, specifically in the games industry. Moving on, Zynga has acquired the Chinese mobile studio behind Golf Rival for $525 million. Starlark is the name of that company. Here we have a game called Alien Flex, which looks like a little too bright neon top-down twin-stick shooter game. $1.19 English only. Mountain Type Studios is hiring an engineering manager in San Francisco, California, if you're interested in that. Here we have a game on Steam called Virtual Amusement, which looks like it's just an asset flip collection of amusement park contests. This is $10.74, English only VR. And that shows me the beginning of the end. So, I just want to see if there's any new news that happened, and then we'll call the stream on this Friday. We'll leave the rest of the games, which I have a lot of games still to talk about on Monday, and I now have a whole bunch of work. Let's see. Borderlands says they've released an additional adjustment to Borderlands 3 players on PC as a result of yesterday's patch. We have temporarily removed the F3 key binding to prevent reports of crashing, which I don't know if that's a joke or not. That F3 is where you report apparently there was a patch for Borderlands 3 and crashing occurred. We saw a couple of games that had some scantily clad characters on Steam today, but I'm not sure we saw any games that actually were adult oriented, which I think once again just highlights an issue where it seems like all the adult games on Steam get bundled together and released on a Friday, where they get way less attention. And I would be very upset if I was the maker of a game, of any kind of game, and I found that my style of game was being bundled with several other styles of games that were similar, so that none of the games would actually get their own time in the sun. That's the whole thing that publishers do, is try and time the release of their games away from competition for potentially a storefront to undo all your efforts as a publisher. That would be very annoying. Alright, I have one more feed. Scroll down. Nope, nothing there. Okay, well, again, thanks to EU We're chatting quite a lot on the chat. And that's going to be it for this stream. And we'll keep the audio at its current setting going forward. And I'll adjust the audio on the next game I cover to be potentially even louder, if that's really where people want it to be. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching.